The Scifi Dominion was a powerful empire, ruling over dozens of star systems. Their war fleets were unmatched, their soldiers trained for battle from a young age. No enemy had dared challenge them in centuries. That was why the sudden blaring of alarms across the high command station was met with confusion rather than fear. Critical alert. Human war vessel detected. The words flashed across every screen in the control center. A dozen Scifi officers stopped what they were doing and turned toward the central display. There, in the middle of the holographic map, was a red dot moving slowly through their territory. It was alone, unescorted. Commander Varzek narrowed his yellow eyes. He was an experienced warrior, known for leading countless battles. But even he did not understand this. A single human ship, he muttered. They dare enter our space alone. Yes, Commander, one of his officers confirmed. It is moving at a steady pace, ignoring all warnings. It has not responded to our hails. Varzek leaned forward. What class of ship is it? The officer hesitated, then tapped a few controls. The main screen zoomed in on the red dot, revealing the ship's name. HFY Resolute. The control room fell silent. Everyone in the Dominion had heard of that name. The HFY Resolute was a warship unlike any other. It was said to be faster than any known vessel, stronger than the mightiest dreadnought. It was a legend whispered across the galaxy, always appearing when war was near. And now, it was here. Varzek's claws tightened around the edge of his command chair. How many ships do we have nearby? 17 patrol ships, 4 cruisers, and 2 dreadnoughts, Commander, an officer reported. Should we intercept? Varzek did not answer immediately. He studied the data on his screen. The HFY Resolute had no escort. No fleet accompanied it. No support ships. It was traveling alone into their space. Was this a trick? A test? Or something far worse? Scramble all available ships, he ordered at last. Surround it. Do not fire unless provoked. The officers moved quickly, sending orders across the system. Within minutes, Scifi warships were moving into formation, creating an iron wall around the lone human vessel. Still, the HFY Resolute did not react. It did not change course. It simply continued forward, as if it did not care about the fleet surrounding it. That was when the real fear began to set in. On the bridge of the HFY Resolute, Captain Elias Voss watched the display with a calm expression. They'd surrounded us, his first officer, Lieutenant Wren, reported. 17 patrol ships, 4 cruisers, 2 dreadnoughts, full blockade formation. Voss nodded. He had expected this, that Scifi were a proud species, always quick to show their strength. He had seen it before. He would see it again. Any messages from them? He asked. Yes, sir, Wren said, pressing a button. The deep, growling voice of a Scifi commander filled the air. Human vessel, you are in violation of Scifi space. Identify your purpose immediately, or we will open fire. Voss leaned back in his chair, considering his words carefully. The mission was too important for misunderstandings. He pressed the communicator. Scifi Command, this is Captain Elias Voss of the HFY Resolute. We mean you no harm. However, I strongly advise that you do not interfere with our course. There was a long silence before the Scifi responded. You expect us to allow a human warship to pass unchallenged. We do not tolerate threats in our space. Voss exhaled slowly. Commander, if we were here to fight, you would already know it. On that Scifi flagship, Varzek's jaw tightened at the human's calm tone. Was this confidence or arrogance? He turned to his officers, scanned their weapons. Seconds later, the results appeared. No active weapon systems detected. The sensor officer reported. Their cannons are offline. No energy spikes. Shields are up, but not at full power. Varzek frowned. A warship entering enemy space without ready weapons. It made no sense. What are they up to? He muttered. Then, an alarm blared from the scanners. A new object had appeared at the edge of the system. It was massive. And it was not human. Varzek's blood ran cold. For the first time in his life, he felt something strange. It was not anger. It was not battle rage. It was fear. And the HSS Resolute. It was heading straight for the unknown. The Tselvanni war fleet floated silently in space, surrounding the HSS Resolute like hunters circling their prey. But inside their command center, confusion had turned into concern. The human warship was not attacking. Its weapons were inactive. Its shields were only at partial strength. Yet, it did not slow down. And now, something far more dangerous had appeared at the edge of the system. "Commander, new object detected," a Tselvanni officer shouted. Varzek turned sharply toward the holographic display, his sharp eyes locked onto the massive dark shape emerging from the void. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The structure was vast, larger than a dreadnought, almost the size of a small moon. Its surface was smooth and dark, shifting in strange patterns, as if it were alive. It emitted no energy signals, no heat, no communication waves. It was just there, silent, watching. Then, without warning, a powerful pulse of energy erupted from the dark object. Within seconds, several Tselvanni patrol ships lost power and began drifting helplessly. Their engines went dark, their weapons offline. Panic filled the command center. "We're under attack. Multiple ships disabled. We can't get them back online." Varzek clenched his fists, his mind racing. What kind of enemy was this? Then, another voice came through the speakers, calm, steady, human. "Tselvanni fleet, disengage immediately. You are not equipped to handle this threat." It was Captain Ilias Voss of the HSS Resolute. Varzek's eyes narrowed. "You knew about this," he growled. "What is that thing?" A pause. Then Voss answered. "Something ancient, something deadly. We call them Star Reapers." Inside the HSS Resolute, Captain Voss watched the readings on his display. The Star Reaper was larger than expected. It was fully awake now. He could already see the signs, its surface shifting, preparing. Soon, it would release its full power. And when it did, nothing in this system would survive. "Status report," Voss said. "Shields at full," Lieutenant Wren answered. "Weapons ready. Countermeasures online." Voss nodded. "Good. Begin energy frequency calibration. We'll only get one shot at this." Wren hesitated. "Sir, the Tselvanni fleet is still in the line of fire." Voss sighed. Of course they were. They didn't understand what they were facing. "Open a direct channel to their flagship," he ordered. Moments later, Varzek's face appeared on the screen. His expression was tense, his sharp yellow eyes burning with suspicion. "Explain." Now. Voss didn't waste time. "That thing is a Star Reaper. It doesn't attack like normal ships. It drains power. It feeds on energy. The more you fight it, the stronger it gets." Varzek's jaw tightened. "You expect me to believe this?" "You've already lost ships," Voss said. "How much more proof do you need?" There was silence. Then, another pulse of energy rippled through space. More Tselvanni ships flickered and died, their systems completely unresponsive. Varzek's fists clenched. His war fleet, the pride of the Dominion, was being destroyed without a single shot fired. And the humans. The HSS Resolute remained untouched. "How are you resisting this?" he demanded. Voss's expression remained calm. "Because we fought them before." The Tselvanni officers inside the command center exchanged nervous glances. Their people had ruled the stars for generations. They had fought countless wars. But this was beyond them. Varzek took a slow breath. He had spent his entire life fighting enemies he could see. Fleets, armies, soldiers with weapons in their hands. This thing was something else entirely. He looked at the human captain on the screen. Voss's face was unreadable. But his eyes, they held something Varzek had never seen before. Experience. "You've fought these things before." Varzek asked. Voss nodded. Yes, and we've destroyed them before. Varzek exhaled sharply. Then tell me, how do we kill it? Voss's lips curled into a faint smile. Now you're asking the right question. He turned to his crew. Begin attack sequence. Target the core structure. Aye, Captain, Wren responded. The ship's weapons powered up, not with standard plasma cannons, but something else. Something designed for this exact enemy. Sylvani command, Voss continued, turning back to Varzek. Fall back and let us handle this. If you stay here, your ships will be nothing but fuel for the Reaper. Varzek growled low in his throat. Retreat. The Sylvani never retreated. But this was not a normal battle. And humanity. Humanity was fighting like it had done this before. He made his decision. All Sylvani ships, pull back, he commanded. The order shocked his officers, but none of them argued. They had no choice. As the Sylvani fleet withdrew, the HFY Resolute surged forward, weapons glowing with a strange, unnatural energy. And for the first time in history, the Sylvani watched as humans went to war against something far worse than any empire. The HFY Resolute moved forward, cutting through the darkness of space like a silent predator. The massive Star Reaper loomed ahead, its shifting black surface absorbing all light. From a distance, the Sylvani fleet watched in stunned silence. Their warships had been powerless against the strange entity, but the human vessel moved without fear. Commander Varzek sat rigid in his command chair, his sharp claws gripping the armrests. His fleet had never run from a battle, yet here they were, retreating, while the humans advanced. His officers were still shaken. The Sylvani were proud warriors, but they had never faced an enemy like this, a weapon that didn't fire lasers or missiles, a predator that didn't need fleets or armies. And the humans, they had fought it before. Commander, an officer spoke, breaking the silence. The Resolute is charging its weapons. Varzek narrowed his eyes. What kind of weapons? The officer hesitated. Unknown, sir. It doesn't match any known energy signatures. Varzek leaned forward, watching the display. What are you hiding, humans? Inside the HFY Resolute, Captain Elias Voss stood at the center of the bridge, his face calm but focused. Status, he asked. Energy calibration at 90%. Lieutenant Wren reported. Star Reaper is preparing to release another pulse. Voss exhaled slowly. We don't have much time. He pressed a button, opening a direct broadcast to the Sylvani fleet. Sylvani command. This is Captain Voss. Listen carefully. Varzek's voice came through immediately. What game are you playing, human? Voss's tone remained steady. This is not a game, Commander. If we fail, your empire will fall. This Reaper is not here by accident. It's here because of us. A heavy silence followed. Because of you, Varzek growled. What do you mean? Voss glanced at the dark entity ahead, its surface shifting like liquid metal. You think this is the first one we've seen? It's not. These things are older than any of our civilizations. They move from system to system, feeding on power, destroying entire fleets. Varzek's eyes burned with suspicion. Then why is it in Sylvani space? Because Voss said, it's hunting us. Varzek felt his blood run cold. The humans were being hunted. Before he could ask more, the Star Reaper attacked. A wave of pure energy rippled outward, faster than light itself. It spread across the battlefield, shutting down anything in its path. More Sylvani warships went dark, drifting lifelessly into space. But the HFY Resolute held firm. Varzek's eyes widened. How? The human ship stood against the energy wave as if it were nothing. Its strange, glowing weapons charged with a light unlike anything that Sylvani had ever seen. Then, for the first time, the Resolute struck back. Fire, Voss commanded. The ship's experimental weapon released a brilliant pulse of blue-white energy, aimed directly at the Star Reaper's core. The blast pierced the darkness, striking deep into the strange, shifting mass. The Star Reaper screamed, a soundless, psychic howl that sent a chill through every living being in the system. The Scifi officers watching from their ships flinched, their minds filled with a sudden alien terror. But the humans stood strong. The Star Reaper shuddered, its shifting surface rippled violently, as if trying to repair the damage. But Voss had seen this before. He knew what would happen next. "Status?" he asked. Lieutenant Wren's voice was sharp, direct hit to the core. "Structural integrity is destabilizing, but it's not enough." Voss nodded. "We need to overload it. Prepare second wave." The ship's weapons began charging again, humming with an eerie glow. Voss turned back to the Scifi fleet's channel. "Commander Varzek, your ships need to move now. If they stay too close when this thing goes critical, they'll be wiped out." Varzek clenched his jaw. He did not like taking orders from humans. But he wasn't a fool. "All Scifi ships, retreat to safe distance," he ordered. His officers obeyed immediately. The fleet pulled back, leaving only the Resolute to face the dark entity. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, the Resolute fired again. A second blast, twice as strong, struck the Star Reaper directly in its core. The dark mass began to crack, its surface breaking apart, revealing something horrifying inside. A network of shifting, twisting tendrils, pulsing with unnatural energy. And then, it exploded. A shockwave rippled across space, but this time, the Scifi ships were far enough to avoid the impact. The Resolute, still protected by its strange shields, remained standing. As the darkness cleared, the Scifi officers stared in disbelief. The monster was gone, and humanity had killed it. Varzek sat in stunned silence. His fleet, his entire empire, had been helpless against that thing. But the HFY Resolute had destroyed it like it was routine. The human ship sent another transmission. Voss's voice came through, calm as ever. "You're welcome." Varzek exhaled sharply. He had spent his life believing that Scifi were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Now, for the first time, he wasn't so sure. He stared at the Resolute, the lone human ship that had just saved his people. And one thought burned in his mind. What else were the humans hiding? The Scifi fleet hovered at a safe distance, their warships positioned in a defensive formation. The battle was no longer theirs to fight. All eyes were on the HFY Resolute, the lone human warship standing against the Star Reaper. Commander Varzek watched from his command center, his sharp eyes filled with frustration and curiosity. The Scifi Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries, yet today they had been forced to retreat. And the humans, they were fighting as if they had done this many times before. "Status report," he ordered. An officer turned to him, his voice uneasy. "Our disabled ships remain unresponsive, Commander. We still cannot counter the Reaper's energy drain." Varzek clenched his jaw. The Scifi had powerful weapons, advanced technology, and disciplined warriors. But against this enemy, they were nothing. Yet the humans, mere newcomers to the galactic stage, were holding their ground. Varzek turned his gaze back to the battle. How? Inside the HFY Resolute, Captain Elias Voss stood with his hands behind his back, his expression calm despite the tension filling the bridge. "Energy calibration at 95%, Captain," Lieutenant Wren reported. "Final phase of the weapon charge in progress." Voss nodded. "Time until the Reaper attacks again." Wren checked the readings. Less than 2 minutes. The captain's fingers tapped against his armrest, cutting it close. He opened a communication channel. "Scifi Command, this is Captain Voss. Are you getting this transmission?" A moment later, Varzek appeared on the screen, his golden eyes narrowing. "I hear you, human." Voss didn't waste time. "Your ships are in critical danger. If they remain too close when we fire the final shot, The energy backlash will destroy them. Varzek's expression darkened. Are you threatening us? Voss sighed, prideful as always. No, he said, I'm giving you a chance to survive. The Tselvanni commander remained silent for a moment, his gaze flicking to the dark, shifting mass of the Star Reaper. The Void Beast was preparing another pulse attack, one that could disable his entire fleet. Varzek exhaled sharply. This battle is beyond us. All Tselvanni ships, fall back to a safe distance, he commanded. His officers hesitated but obeyed. The warships slowly moved away, leaving the Resolute alone against the monstrous entity. Your arrogance will be your downfall, human, Varzek growled through the communicator. But if you survive this, you will answer my questions. Voss allowed himself a small smile. If we survive, Commander, I'll tell you everything you want to know. Then he ended the call. There was no more time for talking. The Star Reaper began its next attack. A massive wave of energy pulsed outward, a surge of power designed to disable everything in its path. It had already drained multiple Tselvanni ships. Now it would turn its hunger toward the lone human vessel. But this time, the humans were ready. Now, Voss shouted. The Resolute fired. A beam of unstable white-blue energy shot directly into the Reaper's core, bypassing its shifting outer shell. The beam pulsed with a strange rhythm, disrupting the entity's ability to regenerate. For the first time in thousands of years, the Star Reaper screamed. It wasn't a sound. It was a feeling, a deep, terrifying sensation that clawed at the minds of everyone nearby. Tselvanni officers shuddered in fear. Even hardened warriors felt a cold chill run through their bodies. But inside the Resolute, the crew held firm. Captain, Wren called out. The attack is working. Core instability detected. Voss gritted his teeth. Increase output. Overload the core. The ship's power levels surge. Every generator, every reactor pushed to its limit. The beam of energy grew brighter, tearing through the entity's form. The Star Reaper twisted and writhed, its dark mass collapsing in on itself. Then, it exploded. A massive shockwave spread through space. The Tselvanni fleet, now at a safe distance, watched in stunned silence as the monstrous being was erased from existence. The HSS Resolute remained, surrounded by the fading remains of its enemy. And once again, humanity had won. Back on the Tselvanni command ship, Varzek sat in silence. His officers stared at their displays, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Their ship, one of them whispered, it is still standing. Varzek exhaled. The humans had not only survived, they had defeated the most terrifying entity he had ever encountered. And that terrified him more than the Star Reaper itself. A transmission came through. Voss's face appeared once again, calm as ever. You're welcome, the human captain said. Varzek's claws tightened. You promised me answers, human. Voss nodded. I did, and I will give them to you, but you won't like what you hear. Varzek leaned forward, his voice low. Try me. Voss's expression darkened slightly. The Star Reapers are ancient. They are not from our time, and they do not attack randomly. Varzek frowned. What are you saying? Voss met his gaze. I'm saying we didn't find them. They found us. The Tselvanni officers tensed. A feeling of unease settled over the room. This was not over. It had only just begun. The battlefield was silent. The HSS Resolute stood alone, floating among the fading remains of the Star Reaper. The monstrous entity was gone, reduced to drifting particles of energy. From a distance, the Tselvanni fleet watched in stunned disbelief. Their warships, which had been powerless against the creature, now faced an even greater mystery. The humans. Commander Varzek sat in his command chair, his golden eyes locked on the screen. The human ship had not only survived, but had destroyed the enemy with weapons no one had ever seen before. And now, Captain Elias Voss had promised him answers. A transmission request blinked on Varzek's display. He took a slow breath before accepting it. Voss's face appeared, calm and unreadable. His dark eyes seemed to carry the weight of something far greater than this battle. Varzek spoke first. "You said these creatures did not attack randomly." Voss nodded. "That's right." The Scifi commander narrowed his eyes. "Then tell me, human, what are they?" Voss leaned forward slightly. "You call them Star Reapers, but to us, they have another name." He paused. Then, in a voice low and steady, he said, "We call them the Architects of Extinction." A heavy silence followed. The officers on the Scifi bridge shifted uneasily, exchanging nervous glances. The name alone carried a weight that sent a chill through the air. Varzek's claws tapped against the armrest of his chair. "Explain." Voss exhaled. "We first encountered them over a century ago, at the edges of human space. At first, we thought they were just some unknown cosmic phenomenon, a natural disaster, a wandering force of destruction." He shook his head. "But we were wrong, very wrong." Varzek listened carefully, his instincts telling him that what he was about to hear would change everything. Voss continued, "These creatures are not simple predators. They are not random. They are engineers of extinction. They appear in different parts of the galaxy, always targeting advanced civilizations." The Scifi officers stiffened. Voss's voice grew colder. "They don't just destroy fleets. They erase history." Varzek frowned. "What do you mean?" Voss's expression darkened. "They don't leave survivors. They don't leave ruins. They don't even leave a trace of the civilizations they consume." The Scifi bridge was deathly silent. Voss continued, "We found out the hard way. We lost entire colonies before we understood what we were facing. Millions of lives vanished without a trace. No distress signals, no wreckage, just emptiness." Varzek leaned forward, his claws digging into the armrests. "And how did you stop them?" Voss's jaw tightened. "We didn't. We ran." The Scifi officers stared in shock. The humans, who had just destroyed a Star Reaper, had fled from them before. Varzek narrowed his eyes. "That is not the answer I expected." Voss exhaled. "Believe me, it's not the answer we wanted, either. But we were not ready. We didn't have the technology to fight back. Not then. So we made a hard choice. We abandoned entire sectors, destroy our own star systems to erase our trail." Varzek stiffened. "You burned your own worlds." Voss nodded. "It was the only way to survive." That Scifi commander felt a strange chill run down his spine. "And you think this one came here because it was hunting you?" Voss met his gaze. "Not just us. All of us." The weight of those words sank in. For the first time in his life, Varzek felt small. This was not a simple war. This was something greater, older, and far more dangerous than any empire or fleet. Voss broke the silence. "I know you Scifi think of us as a young race. Arrogant, reckless." Varzek said nothing. Voss continued, "But we've been fighting this war long before you even knew it existed. And I'm telling you, Commander." He leaned in slightly, his voice grim. "This is only the beginning." Varzek sat back, his mind racing. The Scifi Dominion had always believed they were the dominant force in the galaxy. Their fleets were unmatched. Their warriors were the most feared. But now, for the first time, he wasn't sure anymore. His second-in-command, Torak, stepped forward hesitantly. "Commander, if the humans speak the truth, then what do we do?" Varzek's golden eyes flicked back to the screen, where Voss sat waiting for a response. That Scifi had always fought alone, always relied on their own strength. But this enemy was beyond strength. Varzek took a slow breath. His next words would change the fate of his people. "We do something we have never done before," he said quietly. Torak frowned. "What is that, sir?" Varzek's gaze locked onto Voss's. "We fight together. A small smile touched Voss's lips. "You're making the right choice, Commander," he said. Varzek grunted. "Don't make me regret it, human." Voss's eyes hardened. "Then let's get to work." As the transmission ended, both fleets prepared. For the first time, the Telvanni and humans stood on the same side. And deep in the void, something watched. Something stirred. Something was coming. And it would not stop until the galaxy was silent. The HSS Resolute and the Telvanni fleet drifted in uneasy silence. The battle with the Star Reaper had ended, but something far more terrifying had begun. A war against an enemy that erased entire civilizations. Commander Varzek stood at the center of his warship's command bridge, staring at the vast darkness beyond. The void, once just an empty space between stars, now felt like a hunting ground. Captain Elias Voss appeared on the communication screen, his expression calm but serious. "We need to move quickly. That thing we destroyed, it wasn't the only one." Varzek clenched his jaw. "You are certain?" Voss nodded. "We have seen this pattern before. When one of their kind falls, others take notice. They will come." The Telvanni commander growled in frustration. His people were warriors, proud and fearless. But how did one fight an enemy that should not exist? His second-in-command, Torak, stepped closer. "Commander, we cannot trust them. Humans have always kept secrets." Varzek's golden eyes flicked toward Voss. "And yet, we would already be dead without them." Torak hesitated but said nothing more. Varzek turned back to Voss. "What do you suggest?" The human captain exhaled. "We need to find them before they find us. Our sensors picked up strange energy signatures not far from here. Readings similar to the Star Reaper. It might be a nest, a feeding ground, or something worse." Varzek's claws tapped against the armrest of his chair. "And if we find them?" Voss's voice was firm. "Then we end them." The fleet moved through the darkness, engines humming softly as they crossed the void. Inside the Resolute, the crew worked with quiet urgency. The ship's specialized sensors, designed for hunting Star Reapers, scanned the vastness of space. Picking up distortions, Captain, Lieutenant Wren reported. Coordinates locked. Voss studied the readings. The energy spikes were not random. They were signals. And worse, they were growing stronger. "We're being watched," Voss muttered. Lieutenant Wren's fingers danced over the control panel. "Multiple contacts, Captain. I don't think they're ships." The display flickered. The void itself seemed to shift, like something was moving within it. Voss's grip on the armrest tightened. "All hands, battle stations." The Telvanni warship Borak's Wrath moved alongside the Resolute, its weapons primed. Varzek's voice came through the communication channel. "Human, do you see this?" Voss nodded. "We see it." A low hum filled the air. The energy readings spiked sharply. Then, something emerged. At first, it was nothing but a dark shape, blending into the void. Then its form twisted, shifting like liquid, as if it did not fully exist in this reality. A second form appeared, then a third. 5, 10, 20. The void crawled with them. Varzek's breath caught. By the stars. These were not just Star Reapers. These were something else. Something older. The bridge of the Resolute was silent. Every officer, every crew member, sat frozen as the shadows moved closer. Then, the ship's sensors screamed in warning. A voice. No, a presence pushed into their minds. "You should not be here." Voss's vision blurred. He felt something pulling at his thoughts, like fingers scraping against his mind. The Telvanni officers gasped, gripping their heads. Some collapsed, overwhelmed by the sheer presence of whatever was out there. Varzek forced himself to stand. "Fight it." He growled, his willpower stronger than most. Voss clenched his teeth, shaking off the feeling. He had felt this before, during the First War. He pressed a control panel, activating the ship's pulse disruptors, a defense system created specifically for this kind of attack. A wave of static energy blasted outward, breaking the invisible grip. The crew gasped as the pressure in their minds faded. The shadows outside twisted violently, their forms flickering. Voss didn't hesitate. Fire. The Resolute and the Scifi fleet unleashed a storm of energy blasts, each shot ripping through the shifting darkness. Explosions of void energy lit up the battlefield. One of the creatures screeched, a soundless cry that vibrated through the ships. And then, the creatures began to vanish. One by one, they slipped back into the darkness. Gone. Just like that. The silence that followed was haunting. Voss exhaled sharply. Status. Lieutenant Wren scanned the area. They retreated. No remaining contacts. Varzek's voice crackled over the communicator. They fled. Voss nodded. They weren't ready for a fight. Not yet. Varzek's expression was unreadable. Then what were they doing? Voss's face darkened. Scouting. The realization settled over both crews like a heavy weight. The Star Reapers were not just wandering destroyers. They had a plan. And now, they knew the humans and Scifi were working together. They would return. And next time, they wouldn't run. The HSS Resolute and the Scifi fleet floated in the vast darkness, surrounded by the eerie silence of space. But no one felt safe. Captain Elias Voss stood at the center of his bridge, his sharp eyes scanning the flickering reports on the main display. The Star Reapers had fled, but they weren't defeated. They had only watched, tested, and learned. They will come back, Voss said, voice firm. And next time, they won't hesitate. Commander Varzek, standing on the bridge of his own warship, listened in silence. His golden eyes burned with determination. Then we must be ready, he growled. But how did one prepare for war against an enemy that erased entire civilizations? A desperate plan. In the Resolute's war room, a holographic display flickered to life, showing a star map filled with Scifi and human-controlled sectors. Several points glowed in ominous red, the locations where the Star Reapers had been detected before. Voss gestured toward the display. We know they target advanced civilizations. We know they strike quickly and leave nothing behind. But we also know something new. He turned to Varzek. They can be hurt. The Scifi commander crossed his arms. You believe we can destroy them completely? Voss nodded. Not just destroy them. Hunt them. Varzek's officers exchanged uneasy glances. Torak, his second-in-command, stepped forward. This is madness. We barely survived one of them. You expect us to go looking for more? Voss met his gaze. If we wait, they will find us first. And then it's over. Silence. Varzek's claws tapped against the table. Then, slowly, he nodded. What do you suggest, human? Voss turned back to the display. There is a system, deep in neutral space, abandoned for centuries. It was once home to an advanced species, wiped out long before humans entered the galactic stage. He zoomed in on a dead planet, its surface cracked and lifeless. We believe this was one of their first targets. Varzek's eyes narrowed. You think they left something behind? Voss's jaw tightened. I think if we're going to find a weakness, it will be there. Torak scoffed. And if it's a trap? Voss smirked. Then at least we'll know we're heading in the right direction. Into the unknown. The fleet moved swiftly, crossing light years in mere hours. As the ships dropped out of warp, the dead planet came into view. A massive, ruined world, its surface covered in deep scars from battles long forgotten. The sight made Varzek uneasy. His people had always believed that Scifi were the strongest warriors in the galaxy. But this planet was proof that others had fought before them, and lost. The Resolute's sensors flickered. Strange energy readings, reported Lieutenant Wren, coming from beneath the surface. Voss and Varzek exchanged a glance. Looks like we're going down, Voss muttered. The ruins below. The landing craft touched down on the cracked ground, dust swirling around it. Voss, Varzek, and a team of elite soldiers, both human and Sylvani, stepped out, weapons ready. Ancient ruins stretched before them, massive structures built by a long-dead species. Strange symbols lined the walls, some glowing faintly despite the ages. "This place is unnatural," growled a Sylvani warrior, scanning the ruins cautiously. Voss moved forward, running his fingers over one of the symbols. Whatever happened here, it was fast. Then, a low hum. The ground shook slightly. The symbols glowed brighter. The team tensed, weapons raised. Torak hissed, "I told you, it's a trap." But Voss wasn't so sure. He stepped carefully toward the center of the ruins, where a strange device rested, covered in dust and cracks. Ren's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, you're not going to believe this. That thing, it's still active." Voss's heart pounded. They had just found something the Star Reapers didn't erase. Varzek knelt beside the device, his claws gently brushing over its surface. His expression, usually unreadable, showed something close to awe. This is a weapon," he realized. Voss's eyes widened. "A weapon that survived." Varzek nodded. "And if it survived?" Voss finished the thought. "It might be the key to killing them for good." The shadows return. Suddenly, a pulse of energy burst from the device, shooting into the sky like a beacon. A moment later, the comms screamed with warning signals. "Captain." Multiple contacts appearing. The shadows in the sky shifted. They were here. Varzek growled. "They followed us." Voss clenched his jaw. "No, they were already watching. And now they know we found this." Above them, dark shapes began to descend, their forms flickering in and out of sight. Torak bared his fangs. "We have what we came for. Now we must survive." Voss turned to his team. "Defensive positions. Hold the line." The air grew cold, filled with an unnatural hum. The ground itself seemed to tremble as the creatures drew closer. Varzek gripped his weapon. "If this is the beginning of the war, human." Voss smirked. "Then let's make sure we win it." The sky darkened, and the battle began. The ground shook as the shadows descended from the sky. The Star Reapers had arrived. Captain Elias Voss and Commander Varzek stood shoulder to shoulder, their weapons ready, as their soldiers formed a defensive line around the ancient device. This was it, the battle that would decide the future of both humans and Sylvani. A war of shadows. The first wave came fast. Dark, shifting creatures that moved like liquid, their forms flickering between solid and intangible. "Open fire," Voss commanded. A storm of plasma blasts and energy beams erupted from the soldiers' weapons, lighting up the battlefield. The Star Reapers screeched, their bodies twisting as they tried to avoid the attacks. Some were hit, their forms breaking apart like shattered glass, but others pushed forward, completely unfazed. Varzek charged, his blade humming with energy. He slashed through one of the creatures, its body splitting in two before vanishing into the air. Torak and the Sylvani warriors fought fiercely, using their claws and energy weapons to tear through the enemy. But for every Star Reaper they destroyed, more appeared. "They just keep coming," shouted Lieutenant Ren, blasting another creature apart. Voss gritted his teeth. "We need to activate that weapon." A race against time. The ancient device glowed brighter, its strange symbols pulsing as if awakening from a deep sleep. Voss turned to his engineer, Chief Redding. "How much longer?" Redding frantically worked at the controls. "I don't know. This thing is old. The interface is barely functioning." Voss shot a creature mid-air, watching it dissolve. "Then work faster." The Star Reapers were relentless. The Sylvani warships above rained down support fire, trying to hold back the enemy forces. The HSS Resolute unleashed shockwave missiles, creating momentary gaps in the battle. But it wasn't enough. A massive reaper, larger than the rest, descended. Its form was almost solid, its body shifting between reality and something beyond understanding. It landed with a thunderous impact, the ground cracking beneath it. The battlefield fell silent for a moment. Then, "You cannot stop us." The voice echoed inside their minds, like a whisper from another dimension. Voss staggered, his vision blurring. The pressure was overwhelming, like a storm raging inside his head. Several soldiers collapsed, gripping their skulls in agony. Even Varzek stumbled, his golden eyes flickering in pain. But then, the ancient device activated. The weapon awakens. A pulse of energy exploded outward, a shockwave of pure light spreading across the battlefield. The Star Reapers screamed, their forms flickering wildly. Some were instantly vaporized, their shadows ripped apart by the energy wave. The massive Reaper recoiled, its body shifting erratically, as if struggling to stay in reality. Voss took a deep breath, his mind clear again. The pulse had broken their control. "It's working," Ren shouted. Varzek grinned. "Then let's finish this." The final blow. The ancient weapon hummed, charging up one final blast. Voss raised his communicator. "Resolute, target the energy signature and sync your fire." Above, the Resolute's main cannon locked onto the device, its systems aligning for a perfect shot. The massive Reaper lunged, realizing the danger. But it was too late. The ancient weapon fired, a beam of pure white energy cutting through the darkness. At the same moment, the Resolute unleashed a full-powered plasma barrage, striking the Reaper directly in its core. For a split second, the battlefield was blindingly bright. Then, silence. The Star Reapers were gone. Every trace of their existence had been erased from the battlefield. A new dawn. The dust settled. Varzek looked around, his warriors still standing, their bodies covered in battle scars but alive. Voss exhaled, lowering his weapon. His team had survived. Torek, still gripping his blade, let out a deep breath. "Is it over?" Voss stared at the ruins, now quiet once more. "For now." Varzek stepped beside him. "We fought together, human, and we won." Voss smirked. "Not bad for a first team-up." The Tselvanni commander chuckled. "Perhaps not the last." In the sky, the HSS Resolute and the Tselvanni warships hovered, victorious. The battle had been won, but a larger war loomed beyond the stars. The Star Reapers were gone from this battlefield. But they would return. And next time, humanity and the Tselvanni would be ready.